Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to the Family Support Council meeting today on April 23rd. I'm glad to see you all and thank you all for all your thoughts and prayers during my time of absence. And I'm so glad to see the few that we have here today. As we all know, we tried to make sure we have a quorum, and of course, today we do, which is great. And at the same time, making sure that if there is, since I don't think we have any new attendees, it looks like it's the Family Support Council members, so no need for a more intentional welcome to welcome anyone directly, but wanted to make sure at this time if there was any things that we needed to address. One of the big things that we need to take down is our priorities. And I don't know if anyone had an opportunity to look at the questionnaire survey that Catherine put together for us and wanting to make sure that um, what direction we're going or continuing. And so if you have not, Catherine, did you see anyone?
I see one response.
Okay. All righty.
So you
Thank you.
could have, if you want, you could have, if people are able to take a minute, you could either do the
Yeah,
discussion or
that's exactly where I'm
we
gonna
can
go.
drop the link.
So I know I also sent it in text and email. So if you all could look at that, and for those that may not have it, I will pop it in there in just a moment. I got to make sure I have the right one.
I got it, Rhonda. It's all right.
Thank you. So if you could take a few minutes, real short, I think it's 3 questions. If you could complete that real quick, we really appreciate it. Um, Let me know if you're having any issues getting to it.
Where is it? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
She put it in the chat right
Oh,
now.
in the
It was
chat.
sent email and in the our text chat as well, but Catherine just dropped it in the Zoom chat for us.
Yeah, so the gist of it is, what do you want to do with the priorities that this group has been working on, new stuff, to sort of help focus the discussion?
Yeah, just 4 questions, 5 questions, well, to kind of help us all get on the same page so that we can move forward. Let us know if you have any questions about it or clarity, need clarity.
Rhonda, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, now I can. Yeah, were you trying to talk?
Okay. The reason I was late coming in is because I registered beforehand.
Uh-huh.
Then it just told me that I couldn't get in. I've just been pushing buttons to try to get back in, but I
Mhm.
already filled out the survey thing you sent. So I'm sitting here. I'll just,
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know you completed, and I'm glad you made it in.
yes.
Yes. Not trying to distract you while you're trying to think, but as for the Medicaid piece, um, I definitely am still hearing great concern about the recertification and application process, if anyone has not heard. But
Well, as an aside on that, Tyrone gave testimony on that very issue before, I think it was the February 26th hearings. He gave testimony to Janice Lewis George's committee.
mhm,
Everyone has been, Ricardo called us, your son did a great job. 5 or 6 people that were at the hearing called me and said he really did well. And I'm trying to tell him to get involved with this, but now he's hyped and primed. So he's already done it this time for the same issue. So maybe when there's another issue that he might have some passion about, I'll encourage him to do it again.
okay, great. We need young advocates.
Yes, we do.
Mhm. Self-advocates. Mhm. I'm glad, I'm proud of them.
So am I.
Mhm.
And he got a job.
All right, yeah, yes, and that too. So did everyone get a chance to complete it? Taiki, were you able to?
I finished half of it, not all of it.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Linda and Chioma?
I was filling out the survey, so I wanted
Mhm.
to focus on that, but I'll just pause and vocalize concerns of Medicaid. Yes, I mean, I attended the MCAT or the MAC, they're calling it now,
Mhm.
meeting last night. I plan on testifying at the healthcare finance.
Mhm.
I will submit a written testimony. I have submitted written testimonies to DBH and DC Health, and I plan to submit one for DDS as
Mhm.
well. And so just in sum, I am I am extremely concerned for our families
Mhm.
beyond Medicaid, right?
Mhm.
Just looking at where all the cuts are coming,
Mhm.
and it's just not a very great picture. And there really has to be attention by community-based organizations about what do we do with this projection to support families. But specific to Medicaid, I would say a couple of things that I started documenting here is that I'm concerned about the work requirements for RSA only recipient uh, people and maintaining their eligibility for Medicaid. Also,
Mhm.
that also applies to parents of adults with disabilities who show up in the system as childless
Mhm.
adults, and
Mhm.
those work requirements also count
Mhm.
for those populations. What is being put in place to ensure, especially if you are not technically you're not the paid caregiver of your loved one,
Mhm.
how will you maintain status? What are we doing to support families understand that this is about to be real, and what will
Mhm.
they do?
Mhm.
And it will risk their eligibility. I'm also concerned about the immigrant population, primarily the wide range of immigrant population, but specific to, yes, Alliance is being phased out, cut down. I mean, it's not, I don't like it. It keeps me up at night. But
Mhm.
let's just narrow in on when somebody transitions from 26 to 27 at this point. They're even winding down the clock from 21 to 22 because they're saying that eligibility as a fiscal year. Hold on one second. That's my child transitioning.
Sure.
I'll come
No
back
problem.
on in.
Okay, I'll go ahead and proceed, but to her point, um, they've given us certain requirements concerning childless and other requirements for application or maintaining your Medicaid, the recertification process, but what is it to ensure it, right? You know, it only takes another 6 months and something else changes, right? And
Yeah.
making sure that our young adults and adults with disabilities, and not to take away from the caregiver, right? I mean, it's the in one in a sense, right? Because if one is losing services, it affects the other, right? It affects the whole family. So really looking at, okay, do I have a working father or mother, you know what I'm saying? And because they've now made, we were in a meeting, I was in a meeting for HSCSN, and how Social Security is moving the threshold further and further down, right? So that who can live on $1,300 a month in DC, right? When we
Right.
know rent, house payments, whatever, are generally 1,300, I mean, more than 1,300, but you at the same time, you still need that Medicaid, you still are in need of all the other services. But if you can't live here, right? And then you're saying, I have to be so low that I can't really work then, even though I may be able to work, you know what I'm saying? And get the services for myself if it was a parent with a disability, as well as the child or adult or family member, whoever it may be. So there is great concern, right, about what is happening, even to the point of we were at the community of practice supporting families meeting, talking about education, and AJE had spoke, being specifically Maria. She was speaking, and we were kind of having a discussion back and forth when I brought up the whole point of, here we are now in this day when Trinity was going through trying to transition from another school and dealing with the IEP process. And all the journey that we went through, how the issue at that time was trying to first get the IEP to read right, and then go through all the visits to the schools for me to say, no, that's not the one, even though I know what the one is, you know what I'm saying, that she should go to. But all the time that I spent and other parents are spending to fight the situation, to the point of what the work that Craig had did in Chioma on, why do we have to file a legal, make a legal move in order to get what our children should get. And then they lose all that time to the current. Now we're getting, as Maria was sharing, we're getting IEPs that look much better. They read the way they should, but we get it all signed and put a bow on it. But then they tell you, oh, well, we can't get this service for you, or we don't have any dedicated aides. So it really, as it is at a troublesome state right now, we're just talking about getting through education. And then because getting the education is lacking, when you get to adulthood, you're still trying to catch up from what you didn't get or it was delayed in getting when you're a young adult. So I know as you guys are finishing up these, and it does sound like, at least based on two people, and looking now at the results, it looks like 60% Green could keep the priorities from 2026 plan, additional conversation to support. I forget what that all says, but it looks like
Do you want me to
we
read
wanna
it? Let me see if I can make it bigger.
it looks like we're going to continue, if I'm understanding this correctly, that we'll be continuing the work we've been doing.
So this one for Medicaid, you have
Mhm.
60% of your respondents
Mhm.
said FSC should keep this priority for
Mhm.
2026 and plan additional conversations to support developing recommendations. So
Mhm.
you have, and then your other two were split between make formal recommendations based
Mhm.
on the information you already have, and then continue to track.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
So we are definitely on the same page for
Yeah.
that. I think we all are in agreement. We still have lots of work to do in that area, in these areas. And I don't think that is something that will ever be at a loss. And I didn't even hit send on mine, so I apologize.
You want to go ahead and do it so it
Yeah,
updates?
yeah.
Yep, and I just dropped the summary of the Medicaid changes. I think we've shared this a couple times in this space. That's the stakeholder engagement, like the big document, not the summary sheet, but it does include things like those income thresholds and the change and what's the change in the income threshold for that expansion group that's most, and then there's separate information for Alliance. I did ask, adding that, I went to one of the community stakeholder meetings that DCHF did probably 3 weeks ago or something. They had an evening one. And asked about if there had been any clarification from CMS about the definition of a caregiver, which would then lead to how are you going to assess this? So the answer was no at that point, but they were planning, unless somebody told them not to just put a checkbox of are you a caregiver and leave it at that. As far as verifying who would fall into that caregiver for a person with a disability category. Yeah. So that's something that it sounds like they're trying to keep, how they would go about assessing who meets that exemption criteria. They're trying to keep that as a relatively light lift, if at all possible, with a checkbox on a form that says, I'm a caregiver. Does that
Okay.
make some sense?
And this is specifically on what? On
For
the,
Yeah, for folks that may qualify in that expansion group, may qualify for Medicaid, but then they'd be subject to the work requirement. This is to give them that exemption from the work requirement if they are a caregiver.
okay, gotcha.
Right.
So to your point, that if it's
Mhm.
a caregiver, there still needs definition there, right? Because
Yep.
caregiver could still be working, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But maybe not working up to the requirement they said because they still have to what? Be a caregiver. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of makes it yeah, there needs to be some definitely definition to that. And then again, you still could be really put in a box, right? Because in the sense that if you say that, um, if you are now yourself as the caregiver are now needing to be on Medicaid, there's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of things to that I think we would have to be very careful in how we respond to that. And is this written down anywhere for guidance? What Chioma just asked, Catherine?
I was just responding in the chat. So the thing about the checkbox, I don't think is written down, but that's kind of their idea for how to handle it, how DCHF is thinking of handling that. The other piece is sort of a national discussion point about the definition of a caregiver. If we're getting into that piece versus how is DC going to implement it, is still something that there hasn't been guidance from CMS to state Medicaid agencies to say, so what parameters do we have to put around this? Is there a definition we have to use when we're trying to figure out who's eligible for this exemption and who's not? So having a disability itself is an exemption. So if caregiver person that has been in that group they can be exempt from the work requirement or the community activity requirement. I'll also plug RSA would be happy to help people get a job if they want to work or want to think about that. But there are other exemptions too beyond that caregiver status that may fit for different people in different situations. So that stuff is written down. I'm not sure if I think it may be in the document that I shared. I just have to look at where those things are. But if you want, you can always invite DCHF to come back and give an update at a future meeting if you want to have more of that discussion.
Yeah, I get concerned, obviously with any of these changes, if we're not at the table or they're at our table, you know what I'm saying, of sharing, because, that's kind of like what we've seen happen in the pandemic where HSCSN changed the age to 21 to 26, I mean, from 26 to 21 on us, and then we had to, advocate police don't do that, right? And I mean, it happened so quick, you know what I'm saying? We didn't even know it was occurring, right? And I think to the point of the caregiver definition, as well as what Chioma was sharing about, the work requirements, all of that could get really convoluted, where in some ways, I know this is a strong word, but kind of entrapment in the sense that, you click one box, right? But then you have to think about where your income is or isn't if you're really trying to still live in the District of Columbia.
And that's a whole nother thing about the income threshold. The drop
Mhm.
in the income threshold is a whole nother issue
It
about
is.
how that affects people, right?
Right, it is, but it is all part of the family, the caregiver, right?
Mhm.
So I do think it's important that we stay connected with them in that way because, even the definition of disability, did they ever get what did they call it? There was a specific phrase, that was used, not critically, what was it? Not critically disabled, but it was a phrase that they had, pardon me,
Was it like chronic disability?
something that was very vague, right? And they said they still were working on, Melissa Bird said she was still working on, or they were, DC Medicaid, of what that really meant, right? So there is a lot of definitions and clarity that's needed that could directly and indirectly affect our communities and the people that support our community, and whether family members, whether, even down to what, some organizations are doing to try to help our community. So Chioma, did you want to add anything or finish what you were saying? I know you had to step away, and I appreciate you being here in the midst of trying to navigate a
Yeah.
few things.
Yeah, I started putting in the chat, but I'll vocalize. What I was landing on the part about immigrant families. Of course, there is the Alliance population, those who may be undocumented, and that is a concern. But there's an even bigger concern because as of October, any new green card holder, and I believe this also includes, well, as of October, a lot of people are not going to be eligible for Medicaid or the ACA. If you have a green card, if you're a new green card holder, if you are asylum seeker or have some other status, I think there's some exemptions that I heard. I'm going to follow up an email for clarification on what was said yesterday. What was said was that if you are a new green card holder and you're a DC resident, for 5 years before you become a new green card holder, you would be exempt from not being eligible. You would be eligible. But what does that mean down the line, a decade from now? When, like that, like, what if you just come to DC and you have high needs and you don't fit the bill? What is the plan? I don't really know that we have one. And then for the Alliance population, when you turn 27 or 22, whenever the age category drops, and you remain high needs and are in documentation limbo, what is the human rights approach to care? Like, and I believe even as it's currently framed, home care and wraparound is not really being talked about, so I'm not very clear what that means. If there is a high needs child, because there's only children that come in, and as far as concerns, this is going to be asylum seekers. These are going to be documented immigrants that are going to be able to, that are going to probably out qualify those who are undocumented. So if you're an asylum seeker and you come in and you're granted status in the United States legally, you will not access Medicaid, and you're a DC resident, you may access Alliance for your child. But what happens when they turn 22? There's just not a lot of thought around these things, and I'm very afraid in terms of like people's real life and suffering, you know.
Yeah, very good point. It
Oh,
hit
sorry,
20.
one more thing. One more
Sure.
thing.
Sure.
On the question of the 138 FPL, I'm also concerned about, so if you're a working parent with a child that receives some SSI as eligibility to maintain, like you said, a living quality life, very, low standards on what quality means when you're a 138 FPL plus SSI in DC and the rising cost of living. and housing supports aren't going to be there. Food access is limited. TANF work programs are being dismantled for those who have been on TANF. So it's just like there's this hemorrhaging of things that are going to happen to a very specific population. So if you are a working parent and you're at 138 FPL and you receive SSI, does that bump you out of Medicaid and force you on to the the exchange plan, the basic plan, to keep DC Healthy plan, which currently has thankfully vision and dental, but should you need behavioral health, comprehensive behavioral health, and our
SSI.
population.
SSI is its own eligibility category that trumps the other one. So you got SSI, you're eligible under that first, if that makes sense for Medicaid.
For your child, but for you?
Oh, for the person that receives the SSI, whoever, yeah, but not if you are associated with necessarily.
Right. So
If
that
that makes some
parent,
sense.
right. So that income. So yeah, I mean, these are things I'm going to put in writing as well, and I'll circle back when I get answers. But it's if you are at 138, that's your income, then you receive SSI. That even if it's your child receiving that SSI, it's considered your income. So does that bump you off Medicaid? Now, should you need more complex, comprehensive, particularly behavioral health care? Um, I'm unclear about that. If that SSI income for the parent, I get that it'll keep the child eligible for CASA potentially, and there's Katie Beckett, there's maybe a pathway, even though I did ask, is that the pathway for the Keep DC Healthy families? Are they expected to go through Katie Beckett applications? I don't know. So there's a lot of these unknown things.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
hear you. Mm-hmm.
but then are they, but bottom line is, if you are making $20,000 a year and you get SSI, does that bump you off of Medicaid for the adult, for the caregiver?
Very good questions. You're saying exactly what I was saying, Chioma. You know what I'm saying? There's just so many, you click one box, right? You know what I'm saying? You may be putting yourself in another position that you're losing some other services or support. So it's that still mentality that, keeping families in poverty because you can't make enough to get out up over the thresholds and still live a lifestyle and a quality lifestyle in DC. But then if you stay in that position, then you're unfortunately sometimes not getting the best of quality what they say are government assistance, meaning the housing, now the lack of food access, through the EBT and all of those things, right? And SNAP, all gone. So yeah, it really is disheartening to think about what is occurring at the same time being us as advocates trying to make sure we are aware when and how these things are happening because they do tend to happen so quickly, you know what I'm saying, that we're then scrambling to figure out, how we go about advocating. So I'm saying all that to say we do need them at the table, right? We do need them to say, to be uh hopefully accountable to us to say, okay, these are the changes, could you guys review them? Or we want you at this meeting. And again, to Craig's point in another area of, making sure we're there when these things are happening or being made aware when these things. Okay, Craig, sorry, I couldn't see your hand. Go right ahead.
Oh, well, two things. One, I think definitely from the conversation, we should keep this as a top priority. It should be the top priority, I would say, like it was last year. And but before we move down to police, I just wanted to, which I also think we should keep as a priority at least one more year, just because we're so close to finishing it off, and we just need to go to the training. But we'll talk about that in a second. But before we did that, just because I may have to leave soon in the next 10 or 15 minutes, I wanted to, if we could, Madam Co-Chair, just take a moment because I wanted to make an announcement, and then I also wanted to raise a third possible priority. And even if we don't make it a priority, I wanted to designate someone potentially who could be our liaison with DDS and with the DC government. And so, if it's okay, I will proceed. So first, I wanted to make an announcement. I was nominated by the president to be an associate judge on the DC Superior Court, and that just happened just last week. So
Congratulations.
that's thank you.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really excited about it.
Yes,
That's a long
congratulations.
process. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Because though it is part of the DC government and in the judicial branch, I don't believe I would be able to remain on this as a member of the council. I'm still obviously a constituent, and I have my daughter who, so I'll continue to follow what you're doing, and I care about it a lot. But at some point I would have to roll off, probably in 6 to 8 months. But I wanted to raise that now, so with those who are thinking of maybe wanting to be co-chair along with Rhonda, maybe think about it. So, but that's the first thing. And then second, and really more important for this meeting, is I think we have an opportunity as a council. As you all know, and we provided feedback, this council provided some feedback as part of the process, but the DC Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights published a landmark report that essentially found that DCPS and OSSI and a number of the parts of the different components of DC government that provides special education and transportation services, that there were a number of failings related to that, particularly related to due process, but also related to the services themselves because of the fact that you had to basically, there was a barrier to being able to get these services. And there were even findings that there was a sue and settle approach that DC took, where you were greatly advantaged by suing. And in fact, DC would sometimes invite lawsuits and then would settle. These are all in the report. To DC's credit, once this report was issued, they didn't reject the report. They didn't disagree with it. They, to some extent, embraced it, but at the very least, they took it up. At the same time, the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, started a investigation where they made findings, and those findings recently came out, and there's going to be a settlement related to a conciliation agreement, settlement agreement related to those findings. And at the same time, the DC Council has been taking it up, and there's been some hearings, and there's been a lot of discussion about this report. And at the same time, the DC Advisory Committee sunsetted. It's a 4-year term, so it's over. I was the vice chair of that committee, so now I'm no longer on that committee. So anyhow, I'm here before you though because I think that we have a great opportunity as a council to provide feedback and guidance and oversight to DDS and to the DC government, OSSI, DCPS, other components of the DC government related to special education and transportation services, particularly improving them. And now that they're going to be creating this new division under this settlement agreement that's going to be dedicated to special education and transportation, is my understanding, that we should have feedback on that. And we should have the ability to have oversight, and they should be asking for our opinions, because so many of our constituents, students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, use special education in DC. They deserve the best special education that this country can offer. The greatest capital, the greatest country in the history of the world. We should have an excellent special education system, So that's my view, and it should be the top. It should be top in the country, not at the bottom in terms of these due process complaints. It shouldn't be the highest rate of due process complaints. Honestly, it should be the lowest. That's what I would think. So that's the point. We happen to have a bona fide expert on this. All of you are experts in your own right because of your personal experiences, but we have a professional expert in Chioma who works for Advocates and Justice in Education and Advocates for Justice in Education, DC, and which is the Parent Resource Center for DC. And I've seen her testify before. She knows this better than anyone. So, my sense was I wanted to, if she's willing to accept it, to recommend that she be our liaison and that we have Catherine reach out with Rhonda, Chioma, and myself, that we reach out and let them know that we want Chioma involved and that she update us on what's happening and that we strongly support her involvement because that will make the outcome better. If she's involved, it'll be better. That's my view. So those are my thoughts, Madam Co-Chair. Thank you for letting me go out of order. And it's wonderful to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we are in agreement that we do have Chioma that is, it is an area that she is already working in. And I think it would be great for her as well, to be in that position, to be able to represent the Family Support Council in that way. So hopefully she's in the mindset that it's kind of dealing with taking one stone and hitting two birds at the same time. Well, hitting two areas, I'll say, not to be offensive to animals, but that she's taking care of two areas, hopefully seamlessly, and what she already does is what I mean by that. So you already know, Chioma, what I feel for you, and know wisdom that you have. That's one of the reasons I push for you to be on a part of the Family Support Council. So hopefully you will take the opportunity that we're asking of you.
Yeah. So thank you all so much. I want to make sure that I'm accountable, to this body and to our community. So I definitely want to create a feedback process where there is a report back from participation in that space. So it helps me to have a process. Let me say that. And I want to make sure that what I do there is resonant for our other families and in this process. So thank you. I'm excited. I look forward because it is such DC special education must improve. As Craig said, we're the greatest nation in the history of the world. It's embarrassing.
It is.
DC operates this way. So I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Linda, did you want to say something? I guess not. Linda Brown? Okay, she was off her mute, and I thought she was trying to say something. So we have established that, right? So that's great. And as she stated, she will create a feedback process to us, to the Family Support Council.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Rhonda, I'm here. I was going to say something.
Okay, go ahead. I thought you were trying
Yeah. I thank you for having me back from my absence as well. I know I've been MIA, but thanks for having this forum and welcome, and me being back. But I did want to say that while I have been away, there have been a lot of things that have been coming to light about the education system and technology and how special education is really how do we step up to the plate and introducing that to our children, especially since chat PT and AI, what is that going to look like? Because the job market, a lot of our children that can, a lot of these technologies is or could come from them. These apps that can be developed can come from them because they will be using it, they will be helping themselves of how to use it. So I guess I'm trying to say is that how we're going to reinforce this technology in education and special education, because that is where the communication for a lot of our children is going to be through that. And especially since also the school is trying to cut back on a lot of that with the phones doing school hours. What would that look like for special education in our children who are in inclusive settings. So I just want to say that.
Yes, thank you, Linda. Quite honestly, I think we all know that AI is an area that we all need to be informed about its use, and how it's already overcome our lives, whether you realize it or not. It's whether personal, professionally, or in, our lives in day to day, that it is in our faces. And so I do think that AI is an area that not only we need to be able to use these tools for our children so that they are effective in the educational process. But at the same time, we know new things and technology can be abused, right? And I feel like there's another side of this as it relates to those educators, right? It's, I don't think we would want our children's IEPs to be totally generated in a way, that it's all AI, right? Because there's still humans, students with unique needs, unique goals, that are designated just for them. But I do think the technology is helpful, to incorporate in our families' lives. But I am concerned about what that looks like, and it's not reckless on that side. I'm trying to stay abreast of our chat here. Craig has added a link from the U.S. Department of Education. If you would look in the chat concerning that. And he reinforced that Family Support Council would provide oversight and feedback in the new Disability Services Division and all the related, which is, keep in mind, that is what the Family Support Council is to do. We are to provide recommendations, advice, counsel to all of the government agencies. Obviously, we can't do it all at the same time. That's why we're today trying to figure out what the priorities, but that is the gist of what the Family Sports goal and mission is, to make sure that they are providing person-centered, family-centered services and supports within DDS and its sister agencies. And I'll say this, and I won't say it's just their sister agencies, but government agency, right? I mean, there's lots of other agencies that our families, our children, our loved ones are a part of, that we need to have provide information. But that's the whole goal and purpose of the Family Support Council, is to do so. I think Catherine has her hand up.
Yep, I do. And it sounds, from what I'm hearing from you all, and you decide if that's right, that you want to weave in some school related focus with talking about Civil Rights Commission and really kind of amping up the involvement of the Family Support Council in the work that they're doing. So that's something I'm just sort of highlighting. And then the assistive technology and AI discussion, and thinking about ways to leverage that to support students, but not to have it be an easy something that's used to try to finish something quickly, versus it's something that enhances what you get and your options. So it's just sounds to me like that's something that you've got another sort of priority area coming together. Totally up to you what you want to do with that, but it sounds like you're interested in some engagement with potentially OSSI and DCPS around a couple of those spaces.
If I may, Catherine, yes, I think ultimately this will replace our police, assuming the council agrees. This would replace the police priority. We may even want to do that now and just say that we'll have one follow-up on the police priority, because we just We just want them to invite us to their training so that we can see what happened. That doesn't necessarily need to be the priority anymore. We achieved our goal. We got them to redo the policy and they took our feedback. So, we achieved our goal, which is great. So, but it's just the follow-up. So we could make, if everyone agrees, and if Rhonda agrees, we could make this the second priority potentially. And thank you, Rhonda. I just wanted to thank you because when I was writing about FSC would prioritize oversight, I pressed return too quick. But like you were saying, it's consistent with our council's mission. Like that's what we do. They should be involving us. This isn't so all the original bullet points that come under the link, that's all in the press release from Department of Education. That's what they're doing. What's not in the press release is the next thing. The FSC would provide oversight. That's what we need to ask DC to do because we are supposed to oversee this for DC. And frankly, we're the best situated to do it. And with that, I have to go, Madam Co-Chair.
All
I
right.
apologize.
All right. Well, next Friday, I'll see you then. And safe travels, and I hope your presentation goes well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, it looks like
I'm showing you, sorry, I'm just showing you your look at your survey results for the police. And you may want to take a vote as a procedural thing. You may want to take a vote about what you want to do with some of these things that you either want to start or that you want to wrap up. So most of you said that you wanted to continue to track any policy or trainings related to let's see. Oops. Let me see if I can get this to come up again. Should continue to track changes to policy and trainings at MPD related to people with disabilities.
Yeah, which is basically what he just said, right? I mean, that doesn't mean, I mean, keeping track of it is something we want to do, but making the educational piece and really is what we're saying a priority and continue to keep Medicaid as a priority is what I'm understanding from all of our conversation and from the survey or questionnaire is what I'm understanding. And are we, I guess, in making sure we're all in agreement of that? Did we lose one or we're still okay? 4, right?
You're good. I think you have, what do you have? 4. Yes, you have 4. So you're good.
So want to make sure we all agree that we're going to continue the priority of Medicaid and being a priority, as well as our second one being education, and that we have designated liaison in a sense, Chioma, to be available as the Family Support Council representative at those particular topics, areas, which like was stated, Craig and her had already had started this work, and she's doing this work in her other job in a sense. So is everyone in agreement with those priorities? It looks like Catherine is showing us some of what was our responses on things. One of the other things we did, which I think we don't want to, there's a lot to chew on, but we don't want to bite off too much where we are not being effective. We can take Medicaid and it can, there's so many parts to it, right? Just as well as education, right? There's so many parts to it. So I know we discussed about the IA, situation, but I do think we need to make sure we are clear about the specific areas we're going to attempt to attack, which I do continue to say, from my perspective, is that the transportation as well as the process in which you go through, or we shouldn't go through, to be able to get what our children need. Not the need shouldn't be there that we have to get an attorney and go through all of these processes to get what our children need, as well as what that transition process is where I'm concerned, and I'm getting a lot of questions from parents and needing support is that transition process, what the IEP looks like in transition and how that transition happens to DDS. So it kind of still bleeds into DDS, which I just want to bring that up. We have had them, DDS, come to our meetings and share and address some of our recommendations over the last year and a half too. But because they came and spoke to us about it, we did not give them a very detailed recommendation list. So I still think if we're thinking about something to be the third or part A, you know what I'm saying, of all of this really, even with when you refer to Medicaid and to the schooling, right? I do think we need to make sure they stay in the hat of priorities as well. So anybody have any input about what I stated there?
It's common sense.
Mhm.
I agree with you. It's common sense. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
Okay. All righty. Anyone else with any comments about making sure we keep DDS in as a priority as we speak about education, transition process, and even I still say they're part of the Medicaid process as well because they are one of the areas in which our loved ones or our community receive services and supports, right? And there are going to be some qualifications that come for them. First of all, the waiting list, all of those kinds of things. So I think it's important. I see your hand, Chioma. Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, the waiting list. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a triggering word, but okay. I'm not, we do need to talk about that. But my
Mhm.
question, in terms of that US Commission thing, I would like to know next steps. What is the timeline? What am I supposed to do anything?
Mhm.
You all will communicate with me, I assume, on what I'm supposed to do next.
Sure. And we'll be more specific. We just had kind of a brief meeting or a discussion before this meeting started, sweetie, so I apologize. But I think since we had a quorum today, he wanted to bring that up. So I apologize that all the details are not there yet. But we will be sure to get that to you. We'll be meeting the executive committee on Friday, which, if you have time, you're welcome. But I think do we have no, we don't, CHAP doesn't meet till May something, right? May 11th?
May
Something.
15th is the next chat meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we could tag it on, then it would make co-chairing a little more connecting. So if there's a connected tissue with CHAP and this, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I was out, but I was participating in those meetings. I think one or two at that time, and then I was out. So I was participating, you know what I'm saying, in your meetings, the chat meetings, and I think I did respond. That's how I knew when the meeting was supposed to be, when you had asked. Okay, sounds like a plan. Oh, again, everyone's in agreement then about these priorities that I just shared for the Family Support Council, Medicaid, education, and always an underlying DDS situation. All right. Is anyone going to, I guess, second that at this point?
I'll second it.
All righty. I think we're sealed on that, Catherine. All right. On the other side of this, we do
Go ahead and vote, though. Just go ahead and officially vote.
Okay.
Second, and then take your vote. You could do raise hands. You
Yeah.
could say aye.
Yeah.
Just
If you could raise. Okay, Daisy has said yes. Chioma, Rhonda said yes.
Aye.
And Taiki.
Where'd she go?
You agree? Say aye, Taiki.
Aye.
All right, wonderful. we do want to continue to, now that we have established some priorities and moving forward in some areas, but we do want to continue to invite family and the community. I won't even limit just to families, but the community at large, those with disabilities, those in other organizations, even agencies that to make sure they are locked into the Family Support Council and participating in our work and supporting our work. And we definitely need to make sure we are looking for those who are interested in being on the leadership team, executive committee. So please keep that in mind. So if you are interested in any of those roles, if it's co-chairs, if it is vice chair at this point, being Adrian has been out, and so she's not participating in that role at the moment. So there is some need for filling leadership roles. So if you are interested, we will definitely be going into greater detail at the next meeting about that. So please think about that. We want to make sure that we are being inclusive, right? That we have people that are family members of younger children, you know what I'm saying? We just want to make sure we're looking at the whole lifespan in representation on the council. And definitely we still have the role of the that has been usually taken by a youth, which is, I always forget the Pacific
Emerging leaders.
emerging leaders role. And we usually designate that for someone with a disability to participate in that role. In the past, it's been pretty young adults that have taken on that role. I think it is important to have, just like I said, family members and parents of younger children, but also having younger people participate that are with disabilities to give their input to keep us relevant to what is going on now and what experiences they're having, as well as that parent who is addressing the issues of what's going on in the kindergarten, what is going on as a, elementary student or high school, even those who are very new to this, the systems. I think, and just to keep this in mind when you're thinking of people, I think the one or two of the most important qualifications is being available and willing to be able to speak, right? To be vocal about what they see, what they want to see, experience in their lives and for their loved one. And we all know we're all here to support one another, right? None of us are masters at this, but we definitely have a wealth of knowledge when we're all together, right? So we want to make sure people understand that are interested in the Family Support Council, that they're willing to join us, right? It's not that we have, obviously there is an application process for sure, but we want to make sure that it's something that it's inviting for people to want to participate. We all know, we all started this process because we have a loved one, right? Or a person with a disability. So but we always make sure that we're not just limiting it to our loved one. We are looking at the community as a whole. So please try to make sure we are communicating that to others, inviting them to participate, and let them know what our priorities are this time. That may be of interest to them to be a part of these conversations, even if it is not they're being vocal, but they're listening, right? And the more people participate in something, they may get more comfortable at participating in more with words and actions. But no one learns this by not being a part of something, right? We all started this getting involved in things so that we could make a difference for our community. So, all righty, we got that figured out. What time? Oh, it's 2:09. Any other comments? I won't belabor the point at this point. It will be definitely a full meeting next month. And it looks like Catherine has a few things she would like to share with us as well.
I do. I put one of the things, so you've got a couple of policy drafts and procedure that are out for comment for the human rights policy for DDS. So taking comments on that if anybody wants to review and provide any comments. So that is available for folks to either do as a council or as individuals. We also have the DC 2050. So after we had the meeting with them in February, and you all gave input around, housing and the way communities should look, we're doing a follow-up partnering with DC 2050 and the Office of Planning again to have a session specifically including people with disabilities and families together, plus some other roles that support. So having an in-person event next on the 28th, next Wednesday, I believe. So I'll drop the flyer also in there. So that's something that you can come even if you came to the February meeting here, you could come. There will be some slight changes in the content, some of the same things though. And then if you know people that would want to participate in that, or your family members maybe, then that's an option. I think that's it. And then one more thing for Linda, we do have a grant, another Department of Labor grant through NEON, the National Expansion of Employment Opportunities Network initiatives, and are getting and working on the structure for the technical assistance that we'll receive. But one of the objectives is looking at AI, both training kind of the helpers in AI literacy, and then thinking about youth and people with disabilities who need to be competitive when they're looking for jobs, when you're thinking about the new landscape and how AI is going to be part of it, whether you like it or not. So that's something that we'll be looking at really over the next 3 years about kind of what would be some of the best things that we could be doing to support people with disabilities who are looking for jobs, looking to increase their skills, and then also the people that are supporting them, at least knowing enough so that they can help look in the right places, if that makes some sense. So that's just a note, more to come on that. And I think that is it.
Sorry, Catherine, please just clarification on the RFP. Is that something that DDS is applying for from the feds, or is DDS releasing it and then CBOs can apply for it?
So that's something that we applied for. That actually wasn't just DDS, it was DC that we applied for support through the Department of Labor. We DDS and me are overseeing it and coordinating the DC activities. So that's something that that we're working on here with our partner agencies that have, which includes Medicaid, of course, and Workforce Investment Council, Department of Employment Services, many, many others that would be involved in different ways in some of that work. But we'll be doing some stakeholder input likely in the summer, it's looking like at this point, but we're working on some of those plans for what the methods will be with the subject matter experts that'll be supporting us. So yes, more to come on that. Since that is that's just getting started.
Good to know.
And thank you, Catherine, for answering that question. In any other comments, concerns about what we spoke about today? Again, our next meeting will be May It should be, that's the other thing I need to make sure. Is everyone getting the emails and is it on your calendars for the meetings? If you could raise your hand okay, Chioma said yes. Daisy says she's getting them.
yes.
Taiki,
Yeah.
are you getting them?
Yeah, I don't think I got today.
Okay, so it should be showing up on your calendar too.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the link's there, and then I try my best to kind of now that I'm back to remind you all of the meetings, and then I also send a text on the day of, usually just in case. So if you are having any issues with that, I will say, Catherine, because the meeting is held through their DDS's Zoom. So I don't have any rights to work within their systems. You know what I'm saying? So if you're having issues, please let her know. That would be great. But I think we use the same link. Is that correct? Every month? So this link is the link. So you really, if you don't, whatever systems in which you use, to help remind yourself of things, you might want to just go ahead and place the fourth Thursdays of every month. Maybe you have a personal calendar that maybe this is not showing up. You might, or you want to make it a reminder, you know what I'm saying, on your within your phone. And then you can put this link in there so you have it every time, because this link doesn't change. Obviously if something happens and we need to do so, we'll make you aware, but it is the same link every time.
Good to know.
Okay, and then be sure to check the chat, and we will make sure that we get minutes to you all in some shape or form. And then Catherine did put her information in there. Feel free to give her a call. Her phone number is in the chat. Daisy, are you still able to see everything in the chat okay or not?
I have never been able to do anything.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. So we're just trying to, that's why in general, I try to read the chat from whomever may not be in the chat or can't see it, or, things are just moving kind of fast in the meeting. I try to keep up with the chat, as well as facilitating so that for those who may not see it or are not able to get to it. So we'll just continue to keep that in mind as we facilitate this meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. 15 minutes I've given back to you, but we will be in full range come May. And I think I will not be able to say this. You're welcome to stop the recording if you would, please. This meeting's been adjourned. And I'm going to